She's Katie Montgomery. He's Justin Joseph. These best friends are serving subpoenas to bad advice weekly with Wrong Way Forward. Now, here's Katie and Justin.
Hi, my name is Katie Montgomery, and I'm here with my best friend, Justin Joseph, and this is the Wrong Way Forward podcast. How are you, Justin?
I'm doing great. I've got heading to the mountains this weekend, and so I'm trying to get everything done. Plus, at the beginning of the year is when real estate picks up, so I'm just kind of jamming, and my dog is having issues learning how to go to the bathroom outside, so that's starting to stress me out. So other than that, everything's good. How are you?
Well, I am, I don't know if you know this about me, Justin. I think you can guess it. We're expecting 26 inches of snow here on Sunday.
Oh, is this that big storm?
It's the big storm, and I can't stand snow.
Yeah.
I don't drive in it. I don't like it. People who know me know I like to walk around. I like to be out and about. This is my first weekend in a really long time where I don't have plans. I was planning to kind of roam the city, take some breaks. And, 26 inches of snow for a short person, that's almost about half of my body. So I am dreading it. And I can tell you, last night I ordered some salt. And this morning, my personal shopper, because I just wasn't going to take the car out and deal with. Usually I just put things on my back at the grocery store and walk, but salt's pretty heavy. And he wrote me and he goes, I can only find one thing of salt. As you know, there is a storm coming. And I wanted to be like, James, duh. That's why I ordered the salt. And I was talking to
a personal shopper.
Yeah. Well, through Target or whatever. But I was talking to a friend this morning who lives in Baltimore, and she says they can't find salt anywhere, and that people are starting to cross the border into Pennsylvania to find salt.
I've heard about this storm. We have a smaller version, and I'm going to Breckenridge, but we've got the Broncos game on Sunday. And so I need to get back down here. And so I'm starting to panic that I may have to leave early, but we'll see.
Justin, those are some real first world problems.
Well, I'm just depressed because once this Broncos game season's over, that's my worst time of year. Like once football season's over until St. Patrick's Day is miserable.
I know. But talking about first world problems, today on Wrong Way Forward, I think we're going to cover a pretty famous family and try to kind of understand, the two sides and who's the wrong way forward, So Justin, do you want to give a little background about this family feud?
Yeah, we're careful to take on culture. We're not the culturistas. We don't take on a lot of pop culture here, but we do occasionally when we think it veers and crosses over into the wrong way forward. And so this week we're taking on the Beckhams. And of course, everyone who knows the Beckhams, I don't know, did you watch the Netflix documentary on them, Katie?
I have watched, I think there's two different ones. There's one for Victoria and then one, I guess, for the Beckhams. I have kind of gone in and out. I have not watched from beginning to end.
Well, I, of course, went down a rabbit hole and watched, I think there was 4 or 5 episodes and watched them all in like an hour. Anyway, the Beckhams are an interesting family. As you know, he was a famous soccer player and started dating a Spice Girl. They've had a slew of children. They ran in the exclusive circles with the Tom Cruise crowd. Anyway, they have found themselves in a proverbial shitstorm with their son, who has gone public with allegations that basically they're not real loving parents. And Katie sent over a New York Times article if you guys want to Google it. But basically, we'll outline some of the allegations and we'll talk about why we think his response, meaning the son's response, whose name is Brooklyn, is either the right or wrong way forward. But basically, to summarize what his main issues with his parents were, I guess so he has married a heiress who's worth billions of dollars. Mm-hmm. The family does not like her, and so that he alleges that they are taking it out on him. He says that when they were getting married, the mom had committed to making a wedding dress and backed out at the last minute, leaving her without any options. He then says at the wedding, the mom tried to grind on him before the first dance, which is weird. And then basically they've been trying to ruin his relationship with his wife, who they've been together since 2022. Anyway, he also said that they're trying to make him give up rights to his last name because their last name. I mean, it's scorched earth, scorched earth, scorched earth, Katie.
Yes, it is scorched earth. And I think, generally I have a very, fast reaction. Scorched earth strategy never works. You come off as defensive, vindictive, nasty. It doesn't put the other person, the recipient of the scorched earth strategy, it doesn't put them in a position to where they want to have a conversation and come to a agreed to point of view. I think it's something that can have, disastrous effects. So it's maybe not just aimed at his parents, but he does have siblings, he has friends related. People will start to take sides. And this is something, when we say scorched earth, I mean, he's really could burn it down. So I think generally wrong way forward is the scorched earth. I think there's a few interesting questions that when I'm kind of reading casually about this issue, I'm not seeing people talk about this. And the first thing is Brooklyn is 26 years old. And Brooklyn has been in this feud with his parents for at least a year, maybe two. And I think what people forget is even though you are considered an adult at the age of 25 or 26, science has proven that your brain, particularly the part of the brain which is called the prefrontal cortex, is still developing. And your prefrontal cortex is really important. It's where we have things called executive function. This is long range planning, it's impulse control, and it's complex decision making. And if you look at this, here's this 26-year-old. His prefrontal cortex is still developing, and very
And how long
clearly.
does it take? Like, what does the research say?
I mean, the research says fairly by your mid 20s, depending on kind of, how you're evolving, it could be into kind of your late 20s. But I think what we're seeing from him is, a lack of impulse control, right? Long range planning. Is he really thinking about the effect long term of this? He is getting the kind of scratch the itch here and now, but what does this look like 5 years from now, 10 years
What are the
from now?
consequences of my actions?
Exactly. And so, so I think it's, first of all, what's going on with this kid and what has hurt him so much that has brought him to this space. And instead, what I'm seeing on social media is, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see the grinding video.
Well, so to clarify what that is, so maybe I didn't explain that, but basically at the wedding, he and his wife had planned this beautiful first dance, and he says his mother basically came in and took over the dance and was grinding on people. Well, there was not a video anywhere to capture this, and of course, all of the sleuths out there, the Dumois out there, were looking for it. Nobody has seen a video of it, but Dumois did say back in the day, someone had posted that there was an awkward situation on the first dance.
But what's interesting too is like you mentioned something about the wedding dress and that Victoria Beckham had agreed to kind of design his wife's wedding dress and pulled out at the last minute. But all accounts is that, she had, contracted with Valentino and had worked with, that designer for over a year putting that together. So what's happening is right now the parents have not responded, but you are seeing more and more factual evidence that maybe Brooklyn, in his kind of comments are maybe not factually correct. That doesn't mean that what he is saying is that, look, our family is fake and they're social media influencers and there's a facade and there's something happening behind. But his specific examples are starting to be kind of broken down, among influencers and media. And so again, kind of going back, what is the right way and wrong way forward? And how do we, operate with this 26-year-old who's clearly hurting and is clearly acting impulsively and without thinking about his consequences?
100%. And what I was struck with reading the articles and kind of getting up to speed on all of this was as I said, I watched the David Beckham documentary. And, if you read about David Beckham, he had at least one, maybe multiple affairs. And the Netflix documentary, which he was paid to do, and, he was paid a lot of money to do, he just glosses over it. I mean, I think Netflix had her on camera talking about the relationship, but he basically just didn't take any responsibility for it. He goes on and accepts all this crazy money from Netflix and then just expects the viewers who know this to give him a pass. And so to me, this is one apple that has not fallen very far from the tree.
And so, I mean, Justin, when you read this kind of these comments and what Brooklyn's putting out there, I think something that we should really kind of discuss and kind of break down in kind of our next, block is what is the right way forward for the Beckhams? I mean, and particularly if we're operating with some high ego, which it seems like you talked about in terms of the David Beckham, do they respond? Do they do something publicly? Do they stay to the side? How should they be handling their 3 other children who are seeing this kind of play out in front of everyone? What does that look like?
Yeah, let's talk about it on the other side. We'll be back right after this with more Wrong Way Forward.
You've been listening to Wrong Way Forward, where bad advice goes to die and then gets resurrected just so we can roast it again.
If you're enjoying the chaos, hit like and subscribe and come back every Thursday for new episodes.
Have a new topic or some disastrously bad advice you want to dissect? Email wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Include your contact info.
Now back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katie and Justin podcast.
And we're back, and we're talking about the kind of family feud between Brooklyn Beckham and his parents, Victoria and David. And we've kind of talked about how, Brooklyn's response, scorched earth, putting it out in public, kind of dumping, for lack of a better word, family secrets is most likely the wrong way forward. But we do need to kind of handle him with kid gloves. He's still evolving. He's still growing. And maybe kind of getting his long range planning, his impulse control and executive function into check. But I guess the bigger question, and Justin, is, what is the, wrong way forward or right way forward, but what would be the wrong way for maybe David and Victoria to respond to this? Or alternatively, what is the right way? If you were to see this play out, what would be an appropriate response from these parents?
Well, I think that's really the question, because we're not just, although we are being looky-loos into their family drama and it's super fun, we should try and get some takeaways. This is what was interesting to me. I think whenever you try and start putting everybody's dirty laundry out, it becomes a race to the bottom, because that's never about fixing the issue. It's about trying to make the other person look worse and then it goes back and forth. So it really is a race to the bottom. I suspect that there are much deeper issues here, Katie, the issues that we probably don't know about. It could be the fact that he's not completely developed like you talk about, but it sounds to me like there's some deep underlying pain. And so, the right way forward, I think, is always, and I don't know a family out there, maybe yours, that has not had family drama before. And, I think the solution is always open communication, discussion, a lot of therapy in many cases, and taking personal responsibility. I think that's where it started and ends in these situations. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think, first of all, it is kind of one of the understoods is that mother-in-laws always hate their daughter-in-laws. It's in every movie.
And vice versa.
It's in every book. This is what happens, right? So I think, and I talk a lot about this with kind of my coaching clients is, first of all, for, Brooklyn is like, control what you can. What is within your locus of control? You cannot control your mother's behavior. Assuming that she's been nasty.
Especially if she's a Spice Girl. Hello.
Hello. But, you are not going to control her behavior. She is a grown-ass woman. She's an independent thinker. You're not going to change her. But what you can do is change your reaction. That is something that's within your locus of control. And I think likewise, the way that I think for approaching it from, Victoria and David, we go by first names, is that they need to think what's within their control. They can't control Brooklyn's social media use. They can't control his pain, but they can control their reaction to it. So I think the first thing for them is, of course, the reaction to this would be humiliation, embarrassment, shame, anger, frustration. Those are all emotions we know that are not productive. That is not going to bring about, peace in this family. So I think the first thing is focusing on what is within their locus of control as parents. And then I think it's reaching out to him if they can and saying, how can we solve this? What does this look like? What does a healthy family look like to you? And I think that's going to be the approach. What I fear, and I do think it's been very responsible for them to not make a statement and to not push back. I think, Justin, you said it brilliantly that this is a race to the bottom. They're not participating in that. But I think they really need to bring in an expert. And I'm not talking about, a PR rep or a crisis comms person. I think they should talk to people who are trained on family conflict and how to reach someone who's in that much pain and how to start a conversation.
I agree, and I don't know that the answer that he gave. He was on CNBC yesterday, he was asked about this because, of course, everybody's talking about it. Why, I don't know, but everybody's talking about it. And they asked him about it, and he said he wouldn't comment, but that children are allowed to make mistakes, and that's how they learn. That to me is also not the right way forward, because if you're not going to comment, then don't comment.
Right.
Don't just automatically say it's his mistake. You're not taking, again, any personal responsibility. Like, we've all done things that we regret, but it's an internal matter. We're not going to comment. He immediately puts the blame back on him. So I don't think that's the right way forward either.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm a little bit, I found that to be less offensive than you. I felt that being understanding and giving his child a potential out. But I do agree
It's
with
like
the
a humble
part.
brag, though.
Yeah. I mean, it could be.
Like,
And I do,
it's his mistake. He'll learn. I would be
I do
like,
agree with you. If you're going to stay quiet, you're going to stay quiet.
it's
Right.
still like a non-apology apology, though. It's, they made a mistake. And be like, well, you did too, you asshole. Anyway.
Well, again, this is what is so interesting, right? I've been biting my tongue this entire episode,
Oh, gosh.
but I'm wondering if Brooklyn, I want to state for the record, this is a hypothesis. I am not a mental health expert, but just the scorched earth approach, but also a lot of the facts that seem to be publicly disputed. I mean, like, maybe there was a second dress being made. Now girls wear like 4 dresses during their wedding, or certain kind of facts. I'm just wondering if this child is having kind of a mental break.
But this is interesting to me because, again, we are looking at this through totally different lenses. You're looking at it a lens that's supportive of the child, and I'm looking at it a lens of the parents really messed this up, which is just how you and I, it's just so interesting that you and I approached, it's indicative how we approach everything completely differently.
Well, but it also, the two things.
Do you not want to hate the Beckhams a little bit?
Yeah, but I'm saying 2 things could be true at once. They might have really screwed this kid up, and that's why he's having a mental break and using scorched earth and airing their dirty laundry. I mean, I agree. There's something going on behind.
Yeah, and I don't need to see a video of Victoria Spice or Posh, whatever she's grinding. I see it in my head. It's playing over and over and over, and it's obnoxious, and I can just see her. The spotlight's not on her, and she
and
goes.
she's so skinny.
Well, of course.
Like, I mean, who wants to grind with a skeleton?
Well, her husband's out philandering with everyone, so she has to be. She can't even gain a peanut.
See, and if my husband cheated on me, again, this is how some people are different. Some people, like my sister, when we lost our parents, she was just dropping weight right and left. Me, I was like, where's the pack of Oreos with a side of ice cream? So unlike Victoria Beckham, if my husband was philandering, I'd grow a third ass. It's so true. It's so true.
What do you think about, how does this relate to like they're best friends with Prince Harry and Meghan, and I think she is awful.
Well, they drive me insane. It's like, quit being tacky. It's like, your family, like, I think about that all the time. Like, my siblings have known me their entire lives. It is such a unique relationship. Like, no one knows you better than the people who have known you since they came out of the womb.
Right. And gives you more love and passes, and you can.
Yeah. And again, some families are really messed up and unhealthy, and you need to create boundaries. But I don't think a boundary is, again, airing your public laundry in kind of scorched earth. I think it's tacky. And so it is interesting. I think it's, very fascinating that you made that correlation. And I'm sure a lot of people are. And I think let's just add another piece in here. Wealth, fame, power, lack of, everyday boundaries and restrictions can create quite a personality or quite a bit of opportunity, which might not be healthy or kind.
Right. And it's interesting because you talk about someone who's got a lot of pain and hurt as Prince Harry. I mean, he obviously does. I can't imagine growing up in that family is always the number 2, literally and proverbially.
I read his biography, and he was.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. Well, I listened to it at 1.5. So his British accent was very fast. Yeah, I mean, he's, definitely the second, but he's also experienced, he's had great, he's had his impact in his own way.
Yeah.
He's experienced love. He has experienced, he also didn't have to carry the weight of being the future king. And he also didn't have to carry the weight of being the first. So it's kind of like, everybody gets to bitch, but what's appropriate? And, again.
And then he
it's
marries
little
a
bit of-
strong personality, and she just ran right over him.
Yeah, well, Justin, I think you might
And the
get
family,
a few
and the
emails.
queen.
I
And
think you might get a few emails about, is that a sexist comment? I think she's a piece of work, definitely.
Well, why is that? Okay, we'll take this up later. I said why that's okay to say she's a piece of work, but I said she married a strong woman and she ran right over him. That makes him weak. That's nothing. That's not a comment about her. Maybe it is. We'll talk about that on the other side. We'll be right back.
Thanks for streaming Wrong Way Forward, the weekly reminder that advice is usually free for a reason. We call out bad advice wherever it hides: boardrooms, break rooms, and even book clubs.
Enjoying this dumpster fire? Like, subscribe, and check back every Thursday for new episodes. Want us to roast your favorite piece of nonsense? Email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to include your contact info. We're not psychic, just judgmental. And now, back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katie and Justin.
So Katie and I were disagreeing on the other side of the break, or the front side of the break, because I said that, Prince Harry had all this pain and that he obviously then married a strong woman and she ran right over him and the family and the poor queen who was on her deathbed at the time. Katie thought that was sexist, but she said, but she is a piece of work. And my question to Katie is, why are you allowed to say that and I can't?
So, because a piece of work doesn't have a gender connotation to it. You're a piece of work. I'm a piece of work. Megan's a piece of work. But for you to say he married a strong woman and she ran all over him and he's weak, you're saying that a man who marries a strong woman personality is weak if the woman is strong. I find it a little offensive. And I think I made a pretty good argument just then.
Well, we should tease our text line, 720-45. I actually forgot it as we were sitting here. 720-251-4450, 720-251-4450. Do text us, let us know your thoughts, whether Katie's right or I am. If you think Katie's right, just journal. If you think I'm right, go ahead and text us. And so we'll take a few of your emails before we wrap up this week. As you know, last week, Katie, what were your thoughts? We did, and I thought it was one of our more interesting episodes, the episode's Am I a Karen? I went in thinking Karens are racist. I came out thinking Karens are just overly assertive and entitled. But it was interesting to take the test and see what people thought. What were your thoughts about last week's episode?
I mean, I think it's definitely interesting, and I'm excited to see kind of how it's been resonating. And I think everyone has this kind of deep fear of losing control and it not landing well, and so I think that's why it's so relevant. And I think it's been interesting. I've been thinking a lot about it. Because I took my nephew to a place called Silver Diner, and I take him there after he spends the night. We walk down there and we have breakfast together, and the service is horrible. It's just really horrible. And and it's like he got his meal before I even got a cup of coffee. It's kind of ridiculous. And I just was like, the entire time I was like, Katie, don't be a Karen. Katie, don't be a Karen. And then I'm like, excuse me, do you mind if I please have a cup of coffee? And then I heard the guy across, the person came to take his order, and he goes, thanks, I've been waiting 12 years. And I was like, amen. But then I just thought to myself, well, she just feels like crap, and she's not going to change anything. And, and now it's just awkward. And so then I felt really virtuous for keeping it together. And then I'm like, well, that's probably Karen behavior. So now it's gotten too much in my head. But I'd love to hear what do the viewers think? Well,
this one speaks to that. Someone wrote in and said, I thought this episode was going to help me reflect on my behavior in restaurants, as did I, viewer. Instead, I learned about men's spanks, points hoarding during grief, and that my entire personality might be weaponized entitlement. I don't like what this podcast is doing to me, but I will keep listening. We also had this one. Go ahead.
My response to that is, thanks.
Keep listening. Yeah. I turned on this episode while sitting in a Starbucks drive-thru. By minute 3, I realized I was absolutely a Karen because I was already annoyed that the barista said no worries instead of apologizing. Also, Katie describing escalation as a hobby felt extremely personal. I don't escalate because I'm angry. I escalate because I'm efficient. Okay, that's going to be, I'm going to put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like you, Justin. You're like, the surfer gets one try and then I take it to the top.
And then it's time to move on. And the last of your email, Katie and Justin, when Katie asked whether Karens are assholes or just hurting, I felt extremely seen. I am both. Thank you for validating my trauma while still roasting me. The podcast is basically therapy, but much meaner and much cheaper. So that's a good way to wrap up your free and mean therapy weekly here at Wrong Way Forward. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. And because we're so cheap, we would like to put a little fee out there. We would love to hear from you on our email, wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. You can interact with us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you haven't yet rated our podcast, we'd love to hear from you. So thanks again.
All right, that's a wrap on this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward. Remember, the only thing worse than taking bad advice is giving it.
If you've liked what you've heard, like, subscribe, or follow us wherever you stream podcasts. And if you've got a topic or need some advice we'll probably regret giving, email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward.